I assume that you are forced to listen to our podcast with Chris on road trips.
That is an extremely accurate way of phrasing it.
That you're strapped into the passenger seat and made to hear our ramblings.
That's slightly accurate. I do enjoy your guys' energy and banter, but I don't always know what you're talking about, so...
We don't know what we're talking about half the time either, so... Console Crusade podcast. What is this emoji on the screen?
Oh my god.
What is that?
That was going so ham.
What was that?
Oh, that was weird. Oh, it's like a bubble.
What?
Wait,
What
are
the
you...
hell?
Emoji assault.
Is Tiffany fucking with us? What
She's
is
got
that?
some
No.
kind of filter where it's
She's got
detecting.
technology.
If you do peace, what does it do? Wait!
Oh.
no.
Party!
Birthday.
Oh my god.
What's happening?
Is that cat real?
I just downloaded this, so I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
My goodness.
Console Crusade podcast. EJ Olsen here with Nick Durheim.
Hello.
Chris Gillyfor.
Little.
Tiffany Gillyfor.
Hello.
And the Gubinator himself, Brandon Gustavison.
Electric Boogaloo, starring Dante from Devil May Cry.
I don't know what you're
Electric
referencing,
Goobaloo.
but I like the voice.
Featuring Dante from Devil May Cry is a SMT3 reference.
Yes.
What is SMT?
That's what I was
Shinigami
thinking.
Tensei.
Oh, no. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
So today we are going to talk about Super Mario RPG. And by talk about, I mean everybody is going to yell at me for my opinions, which is not that different than normal, but it's 4v1 now. So it's Chris is too happy about this.
Listen, I am so excited for this episode. Tiffany can tell you I was subjecting her to some of the back catalog because when I get current, I've been working my way back towards present day from my first appearance on the pod with The Last of Us, and I just listened to the Donkey Kong Country Trilogy podcast, in which we talk about how much it will be great to talk about Super Mario RPG on this podcast and how much I want you to play it, EJ, and how beloved that game is to me. We were just listening to that in the car yesterday. I'm like, holy shit, we get to do it 3 years later almost.
I was telling Nick before everyone hopped in that he and I haven't done a duo podcast in like 60 episodes or something, 55 episodes. And I was like, Chris is like canon. He's been a part of the podcast almost as long as we were doing the podcast before Chris. So, which is nice, which is great. It's just crazy how time flies. Of course, we didn't record it all pretty much in like, was it 2021 or 2022? We didn't record it all. Anyway, that's COVID for you. Super Mario RPG. Chris, I'm going to kind of let you run the show here. Take us through the old Goob rubric. And we'll try to hopefully all talk about what we liked and didn't like about this remake without completely coming unglued. 5 of us in a Discord call, we'll figure it out. So
yeah, I'll serve it around to folks. I'll try and keep the table nice and round and keep things moving. And I don't know, EJ, if you don't put bad takes into the world, then we won't have to 4v1 you or 3v1 you, bust a triple move out on you.
I'm not here to litigate whose opinion is right or wrong. I don't need to tear you all down in order to feel right. I know that this is a very dear game to some of you. And who am I to say what should or shouldn't be or what is or isn't, what triggers that nostalgia? Like, and there is no being objective about something when you are so deeply tied to something from your golden years, So I don't need to try and take that from you in order to feel justified in my opinion. I'm just going to give you my opinion.
We'll see. We'll see.
It sounds kind of like the monologue somebody gives before they know they're going to get wiped.
Oh, man.
Chris is just preemptively choosing violence.
You're like, I'm nice, guys. Be nice to me. I understand being nice. Don't hurt me.
I have no problem with us talking shop about this game. I am intrigued at the takes that we will hear. Genuinely intrigued. And I have, I do that thing where I preemptively play out lines of discourse and arguments in my head, like hours or days in some cases before they actually happen. We'll see if I have to use any of those neural pathways today or not. Super Mario RPG remake. Geez Louise. This was a trip. We'll go through the goob rubric, the goobric, if you will, or the goober. Was offered this week as a third alternate
The
name.
goober.
The goober.
Oh.
Which, as we all know, in the case of Super Mario RPG, stands for great, outstanding, oh my god, and bananas busted good. So I'm really looking forward to going through that. No, but in all seriousness, good, okay, obnoxious, and bad. A lot of stuff's changed. A lot of stuff has not changed. Some for the better, some potentially would have been better to have adjusted a little bit more in an attempt to truly bring this game into 2023, whatever that means. We'll talk about it. But let's start with the good. And I want to kick it over to one of our guests. How about Tiffany? Tiffany, give me something in your good column.
The triple movements. I absolutely love the party movement that you can do with the the minus button, where all three attack at the same time or defend, depending on the makeup of the group. I remember turning to Chris and being like, was that in the old one? I don't remember a lot of what's in the old one because I was just so fixated on trying to beat Smithy, which I couldn't do as a kid. And when I beat it as an adult, when I was like 28, I cried. And I don't remember what was in the old one and what wasn't all the time. I do remember some things like Helix, I think is that his name, and stuff like that. But yeah, that trio move, the trio moves, pretty cool.
The trio moves and the battle system in general is at the top of my good. Not only the active battle system of like having to time your presses to do more damage or to reduce incoming damage, but then having that secondary meter build as sort of a secondary incentive, like always had me engaged with something instead of just like a typical turn-based RPG like this, where you're just like spamming A through. Way more engaging. So that was not in the original game then? That was a new addition?
Yeah, triple moves new to this game, the meter new to this game, as well as in the original game, of course, it had the timed hits for attack and defense, but adding the second window for an even more precise hit that does splash damage now to every enemy on screen, unless it misses, and perfect blocking that would negate all damage, but not status effects, which I thought was kind of a nice, like, give and take there, that you could block all the damage, but if you get hit with like Thornit, for example, from one of the bees, like you're still going to get poisoned, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, that's all new. That like extra precise window, which I don't know about y'all, but I found genuinely tricky to find when I was learning new enemy types, like, and new weapons. I'd find that I would hit the first window with some ease, but getting that perfect block window was satisfyingly challenging to me and made it feel earned when I got to block all that damage and had me sort of like fist pumping and like, yes, when I like, especially in some of the rematch boss fights, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Absolutely. Brandon, give us something for your good column, buddy.
So it definitely happened more towards the beginning of the game, and then kind of just like with most video games, kind of like certain little things, as the game progresses, they kind of forget to add it back in. But like when you're facing Croc and you use the fireball and his tail lights on fire, like the little animations when you do critical hits, like verse against their weaknesses, was so cool. Like the first time I saw that, I was like in my seat and just like quietly like dancing around, like just my upper body just moving. I'm like, oh my god, that's so cool! Like you hit him with the weakness and all of a sudden he's like dancing around because his tail's on fire. Like what?
Nice little attention to detail.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I even did that. I don't think I noticed that. That's crazy. I love that.
Well, see, now you have something to go do when you replay it. Just hit
Please
Croc
don't
with
hate
those
me.
fireballs.
I haven't actually finished it. You can spoil it. Chris finished it and I watched him finish the game, so I don't feel like I'm in a rush. But I also don't like rushing through games. It's like a book. If I finish it, then I feel really sad. So I like to just take
fully.
my time.
And I feel like Tiff, you play like 2 games a year, really. if we're not co-oping something, like
Yeah.
it's rare that you'll, especially a new release, it's rare that you'll pick something up and play it. So I totally get that. And you get car sick too. So like me, I'm sitting in the passenger seat. I could play Switch the whole 4 hours that I'm in the passenger seat, but Tiff has limited returns, especially up in the windy ass mountains. Nick, I bet I can guess what something prominently featured in your good column is.
I would say I'll just do the obvious thing because you just teed me up. But I mean, obviously, yeah, the music is good. The music was always good. It was. I wouldn't say that this is like a great improvement to the original score. I think it is a worthy sort of fit to the rest of the remastering this game received, remaking to an extent. But I don't think it reaches the highs as other remakes have gotten with their soundtracks versus the original score. But I mean, it was a good score back then, and it's a good score now.
What I appreciate about it, I didn't mean to, if you had something else locked and loaded, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but I was like, I know it's on there. I appreciate that they made some of these tracks that were just one refrain that looped forever into genuine like songs that have some clear like 3-act structure to them, that have different parts to them to make them feel like a more complete track with some ebbs and flows and stuff like that. I think about like the battle theme, especially, that I love that theme to death. It is such an earworm. But in the original, I mean, you just had that one thing that just went forever and ever. And in this one, we get like a nice little drum break in the middle with a little bit of that whistle hitting in the background. And then we come into like some different key changes and interpolations that just made it feel more meaningful when battles lasted a little bit longer, which is very rare in this game. But when they do, you're like, man, like this track really goes and continues to go. And hearing them with full orchestra instead of the SNES sound chip, I thought it was a really loving arrangement. If not, you know, one that blows the doors all the way off the barn, like you said.
For sure. Yeah. And like another example of that is the overworld map theme, which was literally like 2 measures in the original soundtrack. Like it is very, very short and it just repeats over and over. But since you're not spending that much time on the overworld map, since you have the quick travel now, which is nice. Even when you are hanging out in the overworld, it's just nice to hear more than the same 2 measures repeated over and over. And yes, I do agree that the battle theme, I would say the original battle theme is bad and that the new battle theme is obnoxious to okay.
Oh, dude, I love it. EJ, what do you think of the music in this game?
That's so funny that Nick said that. I think the music's awesome, and there are times where I would just stop and kind of let the music do its thing. Like, I really like the theme up in Nimbus Land, whatever it was called up there. And I would just hang out and kind of listen to things, hang out in the sauna and just let it do its thing. It's funny that you mentioned that, Nick, about the battle theme, because that is on my bad list. The repetitive battle music fucking sucks. And not because it's a bad track, but because I was bitching about this like a few months ago, right? When I was playing Fire Emblem, and I was like, dude, I cannot listen to the same fucking battle theme every time. It just drives me insane.
EJ, I'm gonna share something that Lindsay shared with me when I was playing a different game, also composed by Yoko Shimomura, but I was playing Mario and Luigi, and that has a very similar obvious soundtrack to it because it's from the same composer, it's the same like subject matter, but the battle theme in that game is also pretty bad. And Lindsay, while like just putting up with me playing through this Game Boy Advance game on the TV, she like looked over at me and she told me, this sounds like what Peter Griffin sings to himself, like when he's up to mischief. And that is literally all I could think of throughout this entire game. Whenever I heard the bam, 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 it's just like, that's Peter Griffin just like being an asshole.
Damn it, dude. It's exactly so true.
And it's like, so yeah, that did great on me.
And it's weird because, you know, you're in these very diverse areas, very distinct from the last area, and they have beautifully composed themes. And then, yeah, you run into a fucking lizard man, and then it's just doing the carnival dance. And you're like, why don't we have at least a unique battle theme for this area?
I don't know that was really done in the 16-bit RPG era. I mean, especially with Square, like your battle theme is your battle theme, and then your boss theme's your boss theme. And the fact that we got 2 different boss themes for mini bosses and full bosses, which the mini boss theme my absolute favorite track on this for sure. And I love how much drum they used on that track. It was a very welcome addition for me.
Yeah, I mean, all the different locations just rules.
It reminds me of Pokemon. It's just like I don't know.
Right.
I can't
It's
do
the
it
same.
exactly right, but like it's similar. I think we fight Team Rocket, the music's the same, and when we fight, Bug Catcher, it's the same. So it's sort of like that a little bit, and appealing to the same age group probably.
Limitation of the hardware back then, but now
Right.
they could have done variations, just done like different instrument choices, different like they could have changed it up, but they didn't, and they were just that wasn't what they were trying to do. They were trying to hew very close to the original, and it's obvious in everything that they did, but it's just one minor gripe.
I think you're right, Nick, that was sort of the prevailing ethos for this, is that they wanted to make a really loving, faithful remake, like sink or swim, add some stuff, but mostly they were going to do Super Mario RPG with bells and whistles and new sound font and a graphical upgrade. EJ, what's something on your good list? We already talked about the battle system, which is definitely just sweet, sweet, sweet heroin.
Yeah, the battle system is definitely the best thing about this game, and kept me engaged at times where I really didn't want to keep playing. The post-game boss grind was really awesome, and for a lot of this game, I just really felt like I was going through the motions. It has its cute moments, which I'm sure we'll dive into, but like getting to the end of the game and deciding like, oh, I'm going to 100% the game, which I flip-flopped on after realizing what that would take. But I knew that I had to beat all the bosses to feel like I got the full experience. And finding all the little secrets, going to the frog sage and he gives you a clue and you go to the Marymore Hotel and you have a little cutscene at night with Gino and you're like, oh, there's new stuff. After that, I just started looking up where the bosses were. So I lost some of that, like the intrigue of discovering it myself. But just revisiting bosses who all had a different shtick and were like reasonably to significantly more difficult. That's all relative to the difficulty of the game. Difficult was really cool. And I got pretty juiced up. I think I played for like probably 6 hours straight on whatever day I finished. I don't know, that Friday or Saturday. And I just banged the whole thing out. I love being able to do that. It's kind of like in like Pokemon Gold and Silver and you go back to Kanto and you see what everyone's been up to and you see the little twists. It's not that deep, but it makes it feel that deep, And
this was these are new additions that EJ's talking about here. A post-game at all is a new addition. It was Smithy, cutscene, end credits, end of game. So all of those fights are added for this game. Yeah, does anybody else want to, Tiff, I know you haven't gotten into the post-game yet, but Nick, Brandon, do y'all want to speak to this as returning players?
Yeah, I can piggyback on that just to say that, yes, the original was one of those annoying examples of video games where you save before the final boss, you beat the final boss, the credits roll, you have an end screen, and you can't do anything to make the game go back to the main menu. You just had to turn the thing off. And then you would just be back right before you fought Smithy. So it was just like, it never even really happened. Nobody actually beat this game. There's no cleared save data on this game on the original SNES.
Feels
so
bad.
I'm glad that you can actually just like say, yes, put the little star in my file, give me that satisfaction, that proof that yes, I did beat this game, and then give me the additional optional side content, which I also will agree was a lot of fun. And they all had different little mechanics added into there. Some of which relied heavily on getting those perfect hits, which were slightly annoying for me, who never, for the life of me, could actually get Gino to do like the splash damage perfect hit. Like I could get like the regular added damage, but the actual like the ping that actually hits everyone and turns those stupid bombs around, couldn't get it. Gino was worthless to me in those situations.
Going back to all the RPGs I used to play on SNES growing up, having games that had like an end game or a new mode after you beat it was so rare. Seeing this game be revitalized and given that was super cool to be able to have that boss rush. The original boss rush for Super Mario RPG was going into Weapon World and then seeing all those bosses all grayed out and whatnot, and it's like that's your boss rush before you get the smithy and beat the game. But it's all like, nope. Now you get a harder boss rush after everything's over.
And they're not just the same bosses, or it's not like Mega Man where it's like, no, beat all of them back to back to back to back or else you suck. It's like, Take your time, enjoy the new gimmicks. A lot of one-shot freaking attacks that just drove me crazy. Like the bombs or the stupid candles. God, on the cake, that shit was annoying.
That was another one with the perfect hits. Like if you just perfect hit the cake, the candles go out. But if you're not getting that actual perfect hit, worthless.
See, I'm getting a perfect hit 89% of the time. You're getting the perfect hits, generally speaking, but it's just if something happens where I'm like mismanaging my my healing, or like, you know, because we were texting about this. I was fighting all these endgame bosses like severely under level. I beat the game at like level 19 and 20, you know? So I'm trying to beat the first Culex fight at level 20, and I'm trying to go do all the rest of these bosses at 2021. You know, like I go to fight Johnny the second time, and I'm like, dude, I can't do enough damage before he just fucks me up, and I can't perfect hit all of his attacks. Like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And Chris is like, you need to hit the level cap. And I'm like, fuck.
Skill issue.
Self-imposed difficulty setting.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, it took me fucking 65 turns to beat Culex 3D at level 25, and I thought like, oh, that wasn't so bad. That went pretty well on my second attempt. Apparently, it took me twice as long to beat him than it did you guys. So
yeah, I did first attempt 42, and I feel like if I were to go in now with the exact same loadout, now that I have the timing of everything down and I understand the way that the fight moves, I feel like I could do that in like 25 turns probably.
Brandon, how many tries did it take you to beat Culex 3D?
I never actually finished it because it's just, I was all like, okay, I've done the things I want to do, and now on to other things.
I thought you were 100% this entire game, man. You said I'm doing 100% runs.
I didn't say I just doing 100%. I was getting almost everything. I got the casino, but I did not finish the casino games.
Oh, don't look the other way.
No.
Don't do that.
Unlock it and walk away.
Did anybody else unlock the casino, or was that just me?
Yeah, I got the casino.
I had to look up where to go and get it. I had beat Culex 3D, and then I went, I didn't ever go to the fucking casino. Like, I had the card. I know how to get the card, but I had to look up, like, where's that fucking thing again? And
yeah, I totally forgot where. I mean, because it is incredibly opaque.
Oh,
a lot. I mean, those SNES games were back in the day, but yeah, it was. I did not stumble across that without internet guidance.
Why this was like burned into my mind was, so growing up, I played this at my grandma's house with my brother and my grandma and me. Like sometimes we'd all be playing together or single player, but my grandma would keep these notebooks where she would write down for all the games we'd play hints, tricks, or like these little things. So it's burned in my mind. Oh, we go here to do this to get to the casino. It's all like Zombies Ate My Neighbor. Whenever we get to the midway points where they give you a password, she'd jot down the passwords.
Oh,
and so it's all
God.
burned into my memory.
Shout out grandma.
Yeah.
that's
Good grandma.
the most
Good grandma.
wholesome content we've ever had on this podcast. Like, that is so pure.
Would she like look things up, like game fact things for you when you were like in bed, and then you'd wake up to a binder full of secrets?
She didn't start using the internet till I was probably, I want to say 18 or 20.
Was she the gambler?
Like she was doing this. Oh yeah, she's definitely a gambler.
Yeah,
we have all the gambling SNES games from her.
Yeah. That's so good.
Why isn't she on this podcast? She probably beat Culex 3D. She's probably the real one here.
Grandma, can you come down?
She would have loved it.
Rest in peace, grandma.
Yeah, rip. Love you,
Absolute
Grammy.
legend.
Absolute legend.
It's so interesting hearing the endgame bosses that y'all struggled with. I had no issues with the cake at all, but I had the lazy shell and Gino's laser, which, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I had them locked, so I was always going to get that extra hit. Punchinello almost wiped me. I was 5 characters deep in that fight where I was like, I don't have time to res. I just need new
Was
people.
he the
in here.
bombs?
Yes, the bombs guy.
Yeah. The bombs were annoying. Took me 2 tries on him.
By the time I figured out the shtick, I was like, oh, I could restart and make this go way faster, but I'm way too stubborn and prideful to do that, so I'm going to try and just like gut it out, which I did. I loved the Jinx, the wrinkle in the 4th Jinx rematch, that if you miss a timed hit, he just instantly one-shots you. And I didn't know that for like the first 3/4 of the fight, humble brag,
Same.
because I was literally hitting every timed hit perfectly, and I happened to miss one, and he was like, ha, you let your guard down. Well, bam, soloed. And I'm like, oh shit, like this fight's actually hard on paper.
But you can still block that and still just go down to 1 HP. So like,
Oh, I only had it happen
I didn't even
once.
realize that was a one shot.
I figured that was Jinx's shtick, but also I accidentally had protection from one shots with all of my equipment, so that never actually hurt me.
Nice.
Nice. Nice.
Oops.
Nick coming in clutch.
I don't know. I just chose the good stuff.
Can we talk loadouts before we go into any more goods?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Parties, equipment, all that shit.
Oh, Bowser, Peach, and Mario.
Classic. It's Mario RPG, not weird Squaresoft side character RPG, all right? So I respect it.
You son of a bitch.
That was a part of my childhood that was like crazy important. My brother and I would play Mario together as if we were Mario, Peach, and Bowser, and we always played the same characters. He was always Yoshi, Mario, and Luigi, and I was always Peach, Bowser, and Toad. And the Bowser capturing Peach scenes were pretty funny because I'd go from one side of the bed with the like, we had the bed with the bars, and I'd be like, let me out. And then I'd get around and I'd be Bowser and be like, shut up or whatever. So that combo is so good.
Almost as wholesome as Grandma with the notebook.
I love that.
We also decided, because we were brother and sister, that Mario and Peach were not actually romantic, that it was, they figure out later that they're siblings and they're like, oh God, that's gross. And then Peach creates a Mario bro bot. It's weird. It didn't work.
Star Wars style.
Very weird. Yeah.
The deep Gilly lore.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. That's great. That's awesome. Brando, what's your trio? Who's your main?
So growing up, it was always it was either Mario Bowser Gino or Mario Peach Gino. For this, it was Mario and Gino, as always, because I'm the sucker for Gino. And then it's whoever felt right at the time. So like in Nimbus World, it would be Mallow, and then going through the volcano, it would be Bowser, and I'd switch between Bowser and Peach for the castle.
Player.
Yeah, the real role player. It's like Gino's close to the heart though, because as a kid growing up, not since I had the wholesome grandma moment, I gotta make fun of myself a little bit. When you play with toys, sometimes you name the toys. My hero for all of my stories as a kid was always Sunset Gino. Off of Sunset Riders
Sunset
and Gino.
I remember this. That's such a classic vibe,
Can we
dude.
settle a debate in the Gilly 4 household live on this podcast?
Please.
I would love to.
That's what we're here for.
The Cloud character, one of those Square Enix side characters you talked about, EJ. How do you say his name, everyone?
Mallow. Like a marshmallow.
Mallow. Mm-hmm. Tiffany, how do you say it?
Malo. I think I have said Malo. Yeah.
That might be closer to the actual Japanese pronunciation, Chris, if you
Motto.
want to be Motto. I don't know if that's a localized name or if that was originally the Japanese. I have no idea.
I bought this game. I knew that character's name, and I did not put together the two and two, that like marshmallow. And when I did, I was like, oh, he's a little marshmallow. And Sarah was like, he's a little booger. And it wasn't until I got to Nimbus Land, and I was like, wait, he's not a marshmallow, he's a fucking cloud. It seems like it should have been so
The
obvious.
first scene is him crying and making it rain,
I
EJ.
didn't put it together, somebody idiot. I was like, why is he controlling the weather? What?
That's a weird thing for a marshmallow to do.
Dude,
Even
literally.
weirder for a tadpole.
I know. All his powers weirdly have to do with clouds. Like
Yeah, the
he has
thunder
rain
and the
thunder.
lightning.
Yeah.
The fuck- the
Stars.
snow. I was like, this is weird booger powers. That's
The greatest booger powers.
My good is brief. My good is that I really enjoyed the fact that we got proper ultimate weapons for the characters not named Mario and Peach. That those two were the only ones that got like true ultimate weapons in the course of the original game, but that in the post game adding Mallow getting a new stick, like a sage stick, like a special smack 'em. And Bowser's Chain Chomp getting all fucking tricked out by Punchinello, and then he lets him join the gang. And Gino getting a fucking laser beam. I lost my goddamn mind. I was like, that's the coolest fucking thing ever. Also, my party comp is the only acceptable party comp, which is Mario, Gino, Peach. Lazy Shell on Peach, GG. Absolutely donezo.
Yeah, OP.
Yeah, and then the flower pin.
You wanted to go last anyway.
The lazy shell was pretty busted.
It's so busted.
Bro, talk about busted. Just talk about getting the work pants like 3 hours into this game and just keeping those on.
Never
until
switching
you get the lazy
them.
Shell.
Yeah, exactly.
What were they thinking?
I kind of played around with party comp for the first half of this game. Didn't really know like what was going to be good. I settled early on Mallow because of his thought peak. And as someone who just feels the need to 100% everything, even though I knew I probably wouldn't 100% this game, I still felt the need to thought peek every single enemy that I saw in this game. So I felt like I could never actually switch him out. And so I just kept him in and grinded him up to like max magic user. And then I settled on Peach. At first it was like, oh, I use Geno when I got Geno, and then you use Bowser when you get Bowser, but then you realize how busted Peach is in some of the harder boss fights, and you just have to stick with Peach. Towards the end of the game, when I realized like I don't give a fuck about this stupid journal anymore, I kind of swapped out. I think in the Culex 3D fight, it was Bowser, Mario, and Peach. Geno just wasn't hitting for me, and I was like following a level guide because I wanted to min-max as I do. And I wanted to make sure I was being efficient with my stat growth, and Geno just felt super fucking weak. And as Nick said, he had the hardest timing on his A attack. So I just was like, I just fuck this guy. So I hardly used him. Not that the timing on Bowser's stupid chain chomp is that's also irritating. Okay, what is the exclamation point? Why does it sometimes show up to help you and sometimes it doesn't? There's no rhyme or reason to that.
If you kept getting close repeatedly, then it would stop showing up. It just assumes you're good enough that you don't need it no more. You don't need the help.
That's silly. It would throw me off because I would get used to it, and then I would get used to not having it, and it just kept, every time I was like settled into the timing, it would come back or disappear, and it would fuck me up again.
Yeah, that happened to me too. I feel that. That does remind me that something else that was new in this that I really liked was when you die, then somebody else like fills in their place. That wasn't in the old one, right? Yeah, that was really cool. Because that was part of what drove me insane about the game when I was a kid was like, I just die so fast. I wasn't good at it. So I just having like somebody jump in so I could bring that other person back or something would have been amazing.
That's one of the things on my good list is inactive party members getting experience and being able to switch mid battle like Pokemon. Is that a tropey thing for most JRPGs like this? Was that in the original game or was that a new?
So in the original game, it was not in there at all. And then a lot of JRPGs, you don't have you pick your team and that's who you go into battle with. And that's who you got to battle it out with if you have extra members. And if you got other ones, well, it sucks to suck, I guess.
Yeah, and you get kind of locked into those characters too, because I don't believe the original game had experience sharing to the inactive party members.
Experience share, people bitch and moan about it in like something like Pokemon, but it is always a good thing. It is always a good thing. I don't want to grind for 20 hours on trash mobs just to barely be competitive. I want to play the fucking game,
Right, and it discourages you actually switching out your party comp because it's like, oh, I've already sunk this much time into Mallow and Geno. Why am I going to spend time trying to get Peach back up to snuff? Even though she just joined the game 4 levels below me.
There was XP share, but I think it was like half or quarter XP. So it's all like they would still level up. It would just be at a slower rate.
Stunted.
Still useless though. Especially given how brisk this game is.
I'm still surprised that you said your Geno was your weakest character because my Geno was top HP, second best attack, and
yoked.
And highest special attack, which are the only stats that really matter.
See, technically, Peach was my weakest character, but she was so busted with the healing. But yeah, Geno would do the least damage, and I was like, well, what am I doing with this guy?
Well, you're mashing Geno World.
No, Geno boost. You Geno boost Mario.
Oh yeah, boosting for sure. Yeah, you'd always boost to start off.
I didn't use any of that shit, man.
Now boost is like a 50% buff to his attack.
That's gross to know, and would also make Culex go even faster. But I expect
32 turns for me. That's why
32 turns.
I expect Mario and Geno like a 6th grader and literally dumped everything into attack and defense. I was like, if I can kill you faster than you can hurt me, I win. And so that did make with some occasional points into HP and magic defense.
So the attack stat is any basic A attack, and special is anything that uses flower points, right?
Correct.
I believe so,
Okay.
yes. So jumping, not a viable strat for me because I would have to hit like 50 jumps just to do the equivalent of half of a lazy shell. I was hitting Culex with like a 5+ chain. Gino was hitting for almost 300 damage a hit on a timed hit, and Mario was hitting for a little over 300 damage a hit on a timed hit. It's like, why the fuck would I use FP if I could just absolutely wail away? Although I kind of want to run Culex 3D again and like try some new strats out, because I did find myself using Geno Blast, and I had enough in his magic attack that I was hitting for like between 250 and 275 to all of the crystals in Culex on a single hit with that.
Yeah, that's the way to go with that fight. IMO, just because you're doing 250 to each of the characters, so that's 250 times 5. That's over 1,000 damage.
Plus, you give Gino the lazy shell armor, and then you hand him off the half FP usage. So then you're just sitting there and blasting away, not taking anything from your FP points.
That was nice to have. Yeah, I mean, they hand out so many frog coins in this game that I had all of those pretty much as soon as I got to Rosetown, or not, Seaside Town first time.
If I may stump for my party comp briefly, because I was told on this podcast by Nick that Gino over Bowser was crazy just from a DPS perspective. With the addition of triple moves, the Mario Gino Peach triple move is extremely fucking useful for the Culex fight, that it negates one hit to every character. So timing that out, coming in with a full gauge, getting down to Peach's last move, which would happen immediately before Culex would pop Meteor, and then throwing up the triple move, completely blocking that, and immediately letting you jump straight back into damage dealing instead of recovery was so fucking helpful. Like once every other cycle, I was blocking that completely.
Yeah, I never had that timing. Mine was weird, where I think the crystals would attack before Culex did, and my Gino was attacking before the crystals. Peach was going last because of the lazy shell. So I never had like a good opportunity to actually use her defensive move because it would just get eaten up by a water blast or whatever.
Same.
So I didn't like that move. Often what I would do is when I knew that I was safe for a turn, I would just swap in Malo and do their triple move just to do damage to everyone, and then throw out a couple lightning bolts until Malo was low, and then swap him back out with Peach.
I was such a paper tiger with magic that I had to be group hugging every single turn because I spec'd like a 6th grader.
Well, it's funny because like I spec'd Bowser out just full physical every time, and he was like doing less damage than Mario, who I was very balanced in my stat distribution.
Better equipment for Mario.
I guess it must be what it is. And I didn't get any of the special stuff until like the very, very end before I went to fight Culex 3D. I looked up like everything because I didn't realize that there was like the best weapons in the game you don't actually find unless you're going way out of your way.
You didn't realize they had to walk sideways off the map in Nimbus Land to get fertilizer from a hidden Bezo so that you could climb up and get a lazy shell from a gardener that you didn't even know was in the back half of Rose City or whatever?
Because it's not accessible until that moment.
Yeah, it's super dumb. And that's just sort of indicative of like game design in the 90s. Just incredibly arcane, and thank God for the internet or game magazines. I mean, sometimes you think they only put that shit in. Yeah, shout out grandma. But no, as far as like the Culex fight and like using that special move to block all the damage on that, because that first half of the fight where you're taking, if you're at max health, it'll take you to 1.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have like 1 tick of health gone, you're just
dead.
And so trying to get the timing right of healing everybody enough to max out, keeping Peach alive. I mean, that dance for the first half of the fight was such a nightmare, and I wasted multiple turns just trying to heal and get back to 100% before the next wave came in.
Dude, not to mention that just the big dick move of starting the fight at 1 HP, and you're like, okay, spend a turn Coca-Cola-ing, you sick bitch.
But the second half, when he just goes into 999, a single character, it was like, oh, thank God, this is so much easier. So that second half of the fight was a breeze. I was like 15 turns, versus the prior 50 turns. So
slogging out. What he gets in that phase after knocking out 2 of the crystals or 3 of them?
4.
Is it all of them?
Yeah. It was for me that he started double casting and switching to the single character Deathclaw
because that last crystal like heals him because it gives you the fake out where you think you've killed him at one point, and he like does the animation, he's dead, and I was like, oh sick, I'm done. But then that last crystal like explodes and fully healed him.
Oh, that's really cool. That must have been that
Whoa.
you must have killed Culex and then the crystal sacrificed itself for that. Because I killed the crystals before going after him.
Me too. Wow, that's awesome.
I big dicked this fight, and then they fucking healed on me. That's bullshit. 65 turns.
They're like, you're too good.
Too much skilled.
I feel vindicated.
Inverse skill issue.
That's such bullshit. Okay, cool.
Task failed successfully.
That's great. Have you guys who have beaten QLEX 3D gone back and beaten Smithy again?
No.
I have not. Is there something added?
No, it does not change that fight, but all of the rematch boss characters show up in the credit sequence in different places.
That's tight.
Yeah,
That's
it's really cool.
That
It's
is
really,
so
really
cool.
cool. Any other quick hits from the group from the good column that we want to have on the ledger?
Yes. Something that was so important to the original game, and I'm glad that they kept, because they could have easily washed it out with the rest of the added cutscenes, is they kept all of the pantomime like recaps that the party goes through when explaining what's happening to other characters, and that is like perfect.
Yeah.
And I love it. It was great back then, and it's great now.
This is funny because that's actually kind of in my obnoxious. I mean, I'll tackle it now. I love that. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's my favorite part about the original. It's just, it felt like the original, the animations had more energy than this one did, than these ones did. Like, the animation didn't look as energized as the old school ones.
That's interesting. I could see that just based on the screen being smaller, so the characters were larger on the screen, so their movements probably felt more exaggerated. I could see that.
Brandon, you are onto something. It's the speed for me. And I didn't have words for it until you mentioned it, but I was like, this is not quite right. Like that very first recap in Mushroom Kingdom where we get the ding, 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 ding. And he's not moving fast enough. It's not frenetic enough. Like the timing of the comedy didn't land as much.
That buttery smooth frame rate, god damn it!
Didn't hear a word of that, EJ. You totally Discord censored you. The deep state
That's
says
probably good.
no.
Tyranny!
That's that buttery smooth frame rate for you, Chris. Didn't feel as jittery and wacky at 22 frames per second coming out of your shitty CRT TV.
I think it was. I don't know what the frame rate was the original, but
One little stupid thing that I really liked that they kept was the shower. There's like this thing
Oh,
where
yeah.
Mario goes in the shower and he whistles the theme song to Super Mario Bros. And
Yep.
they kept that, so I was really happy.
and he
about
comes
that.
out and he's all red because
Red-faced.
he's warm from the shower. Yeah, so it's the small things that they kept like true to the original that I think for the most part belongs in the good category, like finding Peach's unmentionable or
Link.
seeing the Samus and Link cameos.
I didn't find many of those Easter eggs. I found the ships. You see the models of the ships.
Oh, the F-Zero.
Yeah,
Yeah, in the R-Wing, I think.
and the R-Wing. I didn't find Samus. I saw a photo of it online, but I never saw her.
There's
in
two
the game.
Samuses. There's also the toy Samus in Booster's toy box.
Booster.
Along with a little Famicom disc system character and a Rob, and all the hits are here. Also, there's a Magitech mech at the receptionist counter.
It was Smash Bros. Before there was a Smash Bros. They're all here.
Everyone is here.
I don't want to talk about Smash Bros. In relation to this game because it's just going to make me fucking depressed.
It's okay. You got that Mii Fighter costume.
Oh, shut the fuck up!
Mallow for Smash. I'm all in.
No, that would be,
That'd be
even
low-key hype.
worse. Would be even worse to be like, oh yeah, RPG sold really well, so we're gonna bring one of the beloved characters to Smash, Mallow. No,
Fuck yeah.
it's gotta be Gino.
Just Booster in this train.
I'd be all for Booster in the train. I mean, but I'd be for Mallow too, but Booster in the train facing against Wario and the motorcycle.
Booster was like the only boss in this game that I didn't think was dumb as shit. I mean, he was dumb as shit, but at least it was just the wackiness of him just being an ignorant dipshit mixed with the cursed animations. I was like, this guy's cool as fuck. Ah!
Yeah, he's awful, and I like that you got a proper fight with him too in the post game. I was like, oh, this is dope. You actually get to like square up with him this time. Shall we move to the okay?
One thing I want to mention that Nick, if you weren't going to talk about the length, I would like to. But if you want to do that, please.
All you.
you had brought this up earlier, Nick, and I hadn't actually put it on my list. But not only the sort of bite-sized encounters in this game, but the overall length was a huge boon for me. And a lot of the time, I was beating my head against this game, not because it was hard or it was just kind of a slog for the first 6-7 hours. And I was like, man, I don't know if this is for me. But because each area was so short and each boss encounter, like, I mean, when I fought Spiritovich for the first time and he just destroyed me right away, I was like, I thought I didn't have to grind in this game. What the fuck is this? So I had to kind of like recalibrate how I was playing the game, which I think was a good thing because it kept me more engaged after that fight. But being able to essentially 100% this game, basically do all the bosses and get the complete ending or whatever in like 20 hours. It's funny because like with Spider-Man, we were like, 20 hours isn't enough. But with a game like this, I was like, please, no more. This was perfect. You know?
Yeah, not every game's got to be a 100-hour experience, he says, as he's hopefully, touch wood, God, I think I'm about to go into the final boss area in Final Fantasy 16 finally, hopefully tonight. See how long this recording takes. Yeah, Brandon, we'll get you back next week. We'll talk that. It is exactly as long as it needs to be. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't drag. The battle system moves so fucking quickly and responsively that it's just, you're on, you're through. There's no like 3-minute long turn-based, gouge your eyes out battles that you sometimes see in like a Final Fantasy VI, which I still like adore the shit out of that game. But oh my God, those battles can take a long fucking time sometimes.
Yeah, 15 hours, 27 minutes, and 45 seconds to beat Smithy. That is all the game needed to be. That was getting the casino, getting the lazy shell, getting everybody else's ultimate items. It's all like there's only a few things that weren't added things that were in the original game that I missed out on, like the 100 jumps,
Fuck
getting
that.
every single frog coin items. It's all like, but for the most part, everything in the original game, I completed 15 hours, 27 minutes, and 45 seconds. And that's all this game needed to be.
For a $60 title, there was a lot of hand wringing on the internet about that, but whatever. I just don't care. Like,
If we ever want to get another honest to God Mario RPG, and dare I say a Paper Mario RPG, there should be no hand-wringing about purchasing this game. There should be no hand-wringing about purchasing the Thousand Year Door remake. There should not be any strife on the internet. If we ever want to see titles like this again, this is the moment for us to vote with our dollars and to say, please do this more. We will give you so much money. For the love of fucking God, please listen to us.
I mean, it had a story that was like, it was easy. A big giant sword comes down, destroys the wishing star. You got to collect the stars, and then you stop the guy who destroyed the wishing star. And it didn't try to be more than that. It just kept to that story, and it finished. Like where, I mean, I'm a big JRPG fan, so it's all like, you got me playing 100, 200-hour games all the time. It's all like, I'm still not even done with Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm 111 hours into that game. It's like, so I play long games, but it's all like, all I need was just a simple story that's fun and enjoyable with fun and enjoyable characters, and you just bring me to the end and I'm happy. It doesn't need to be super long.
Local Italian man keeps guns out of community. That is the plot of Mario RPG.
Brandon, this is maybe me projecting a little bit, but as someone who plays really, really long games, that can feel really overwhelming, never finishing things. And then you get the sort of guilt of like, I spent all this money and I'm not completing things. And then it becomes like my hobby's a job. And so like playing a game that you can beat in 15 or 20 hours and you beat it in a weekend and you're like, I was able to complete something, and I don't have to feel that guilt as I play 200 hours of a game that will never be beaten. You know how many hours I put into The Witcher? I've restarted that game twice. I'm on my third playthrough, and I'll never beat that game. I just get so deep, grinding everything out, and I love it, and then I'm like, all right, I've hit the 100-hour mark. I can't play any more of this, and I never have beaten it.
It's so good. Finish it. I finished it.
I heard the DLC is the best thing about that game, and I'm like, it gets better, but I can't get there if I don't fucking beat the main game. So
I mean, technically, you can play them without beating the main game. So you just have to get to the level requirement, and then you can play through the DLC.
Yeah,
You'll never do that.
bite-sized games are a good thing, and it's funny because like I brought up Spider-Man and how annoying it was that it was only X hours long, but that was less about like, oh, games need to hit this arbitrary threshold or else I won't give them my money. That's stupid. It was more like this game left a lot on the fucking table and I'm irritated about it because I wanted more. Mario RPG, I didn't want more. I did that boss rush. It was a fun last day and then it was like, boom, we're done. Wipe my hands of it. That was a satisfying experience.
EJ, are you ever going to replay this game unprompted?
I don't know. You know, it's like I said, nostalgia is a weird thing. I don't know what dictates what I want to feel again or how. I don't know. And the older I've gotten, the less I replay any games. Not as a rule, but almost, where it's just sort of like I've learned the hard lesson of you can never go home again kind of thing. And there's just more to do. So I don't know. Probably not. There are a lot of games I'll probably never go back to again, even though they're on my shelf. But maybe one day my own kid will play it and I can refer to them to this podcast and say, great, you know, Uncle Brandon fucking loved this game or whatever, you know, like.
Yeah, Uncle B-Man.
The reason I ask is because I'm sure many of the other guests on our panel will agree that SNES games are very replayable, and Super Mario RPG is probably not a game that any of us have only played once, whether we actually finished it or not. But started from the beginning, you know, obviously that's like what I consider a playthrough, is not necessarily at the end, start to finish, but start to at some point. Probably about Mole Town is about where most people would probably stop, because it gets kind of boring inside those mines. But I think this easily replaces the original SNES version as far as there's no reason to play that one now. Like you could play this one and it's better. So I don't know, like maybe pop it in just to see the sprites, but I mean you could play this game with the original music, you can experience it, you could play like do challenge runs with this if you feel like it. I mean it's one of those rare remasters / remakes that kind of renders the original version obsolete in a way.
Which I think a good remake should do, and most of them do, unless, again, you're so tied to that original experience. That's totally understandable. Like, the original, like, base vanilla Skyrim is always going to have just a certain look and feel to it that is always going to take me back to being 19, 20 years old, sitting in the room at the bro house while John drinks beer next to me while I'm, like, killing Draugr or whatever. And it's a very different experience than what I can do now with all my mods and everything. There's something about that I think is totally valid to be like, well, I want to play the Super Nintendo version because that's what I remember, or that's what feels the best. I even wrote down, dude, at one point, I wish I would have played the Super Nintendo version instead of this version, because it would have made a lot of my irritations with this game probably disappear, because I'm playing an old game. Playing a game like this that was supposed to bring it into this new era of video games in the current year, I felt there was a lot of things that just really didn't work about this game that I would have probably just glossed over otherwise. So it's one of those push-pull things of like, yes, this is definitely a good remake, but did it do enough to really make it feel like it belongs in the current year? And I don't know if it did for me. So in that sense, does it really justify itself? But, you know, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm just glad that it's back and that it's like given this treatment. Like not a lot of games from the Super Nintendo get this kind of glow up.
Totally.
So hell yeah, big ups to Square, Nintendo, and Arte Piazza, because like they did a hell of a job.
Tiffany, I can't tell if you're talking or not because you're muted, but you're okay.
No, just nodding a lot of nonverbals because I'm eating popcorn, so I'm trying not to be unmuted
Thanks,
when
babe.
I'm eating.
Really appreciate
It's
that.
a lot nicer than me when I play games with EJ and Brennan. I'm always sitting there chomping.
Brandon is a unique case because he doesn't play with headphones on. He has us blasting out of his fucking computer speakers, and then he's just eating corn dogs or whatever. And then he'll be having a conversation with his wife while we're like deep in a game trying to communicate with each other. And we're just like, Brandon, mute your fucking microphone.
Or
He's like that guy on the Max. Just listening to music full bore on their phone.
Right.
or we're deep in an island trying to search for treasure, and I'm just passed out at the
He's snoring
at the
into the
crow's nest.
microphone. Yeah. And there's an echo. I'm hearing 3 Brandons snoring. It's
Hey
just,
man, I really wanted to play with you guys, but I was really tired because
I
I had
know.
a hellish roommate and
know.
I had hellish work.
I know, man.
But I really
It's
wanted
just-
to play.
It's still a funny bit. Asleep in the
It
Crow's
is.
Nest. Brandon Davidson's life story.
That's great.
The name of his memoir.
Yeah, right.
I still can't believe this game exists. Even having played it to completion, I still I see it over on my entertainment center, and I'm like, no, that didn't really happen. Like, this is a dream. I fever dreamed this game getting a remake in 2023.
It's not just that it was from our childhoods, it's that it was really kind of rare. What was it? It was worth several $100s trying to find the SNES version or something like that for a little while. And it never went down a lot in being worth more money than like Super Mario World. You know, it was worth more all the time trying to find this cartridge. Is that the right word? So it was like the early hipster in me that loved that I knew this game because not everybody did and not everybody had it and it was hard to find. And so there was a lot of specialness to it. And I'm so happy they made a new version that maybe more people will love it and appreciate it and maybe not. And a little bit of me in the hipster brain is like, I hope you don't like it because it's my game, my special game from my childhood. And I would love to see more Mario RPG, but I'm okay if they don't do anything else with Mario RPG World. It's a special little separate world that is special. And they made Mario Wonder this year at the same time. And that game is, in my mind, perfect. It's better than Super Mario World. That was my thought when you guys were talking about it on the last podcast. I actually like it better than that because I do think it's just like Super Mario World, but prettier and, newer. But Mario RPG basically just felt like a warm hug, And that sort of leads into the okays now. I don't know if that's okay to usher us in that direction, Chris. But
Beautiful
my
transition.
thought is I absolutely love Mario RPG, but I can be a little more objective than you might think, EJ. Chris kind of paints me a little less objective than I really am.
He's like, projecting.
Yeah.
He's a defensive little boy. It's okay.
It's because I hear the things she says about you in the car that she would never say to your face. That's why.
I get worked up. It's not true. I'd probably say it. I just would be less worked up. I do get worked up in the moment, though, because you guys are like hollering at each other on the podcast. So I'm also hollering in response. But my hot take on this is that I think the entire game overall is okay. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's obnoxious. I think it's okay.
Do we have scores written down for that? I have a score written down for this. Does everybody else have scores? We want to save that for the end?
Yeah, let's do it at the end. I have a score.
I have a score.
I could make up a score on the spot as I want to do.
As you
I make one up on the spot and pretend like I thought of it ahead of time.
Unimpeachable.
I do want to make sure that the caveat there is I love this game and it's special to me, but objectively, I don't think that it is for everyone. I especially don't think it's for adults who didn't play it as a kid. I think more than that, it's for people who played it as a kid or loved Mario, played a lot of the Mario games as a kid. So it touched you in a special way a little bit there, EJ, in more than a way than you thought in the first half when you were, I heard the quote, bored.
Quite bored. And overall, and maybe this segues into the things maybe we didn't love about the game, but to me, this was like overwhelmingly the worst Mario RPG that I have played. And I haven't played all of them, but I've played a good handful of them, and it is by a decent margin the worst of them. And it's the first of them, so it's like how you can't hold that against it. And I'm sure there are worse Mario RPGs out there that I haven't played. So it's not like this isn't, the end all be all of Mario RPG rankings here, but I was like, oh, I see like how this informs superior games, more modern games. I like it. This totally makes sense. I like how they, especially with the combat system, they did some things to make it a little more exciting. They left some things on the table, like not doing damage by initiating a fight. What the fuck was that about? That would have been nice to see, but I agree with you, Tiffany. It's an okay game, and I understand why people love it so much, especially if they played it when they were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Like, this has a lot of charm, Yeah,
and it's hard to sort of look at it from a reverse lens of you having played Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi and then playing this, which is its predecessor in every way. So you're playing the games that learned from this game. But yeah, this was the first time that we had Peach that wasn't just an object that you rescued. Like, she has agency. She jumps out the castle and says, "Yo, I'm gonna fuck shit up with you," which rules. And you have Bowser, who's a goober, and he's like, he has all these different like monologues where he's talking to himself, and like justifying to himself that he should be teaming up with Mario because he doesn't want to be kicked out of his house. Like he wants to live in his keep. And they just that characterization is true to this day. Like that is Jack Black's character in the movie. That is from Mario RPG. That's where that character originates from.
Reluctantly helpful Bowser is best Bowser.
Exactly. And I love that Bowser too. So the characterization I think still holds up, and like the writing is charming, it's witty, it's brief, it's sharp, it's to the point, it's exactly what it's trying to do, which is nice.
And we so don't have to do this now, although in a future, probably very soon episode, we're doing a tier list of every Mario RPG game.
Oh God, there's so many Mario and Luigi games that I would have to play in order to do that because I didn't play any of the ones after the original.
Well, they're all in bot tier.
I played them
they're
halfway through. Does that count? I played them halfway.
Yeah, you can join us for that and just say, "Oh yeah, that's terrible," because we know they are.
I mean, there's only 4 good ones, and everything else is just kind of meh.
Absolutely, there are 4 good total RPGs involving Mario. My sort of like, because like you, Nick, like you, Brandon, presumably, and EJ, like you, although in a different order. Like I've played almost all of these RPGs that came out of Super Mario RPG. None of them to me are even really RPGs. After Smart RPG, that every successive game we got further away from Mario RPG, it diluted the RPG formula. And so I draw a dotted line straight off a fucking cliff, like the death of these games as actual RPGs. Every single entry past Super Mario RPG that we got further and further away from an actual RPG. That first we lost the party in Paper Mario, and we had like Mario +1, but like they're kind of limited. And yeah, you could swap them out, and there's a little bit of like rock, paper, scissors with the companions, but that just moved us further away. Mario, Luigi, like the bros moves were cool, but like that battle system is only a teeny tiny bit deeper than Mario RPGs was, and then they immediately moved away from that the second they got done with Superstar Saga, and we never really had the same like depth of mechanics that even you had in that game. So I don't know. I would love a proper Paper Mario RPG, but that did not start a good trend.
You bring up a good point, like losing the party. Like that is certainly one way to do an RPG, and they did move away from that. I would argue like Paper Mario is, both of them are like more competent RPGs in that things like the badge system, adding way more variety to how you can build a loadout, and things like, like in this game, like the armor is so linear that there's no sense of customization whatsoever. You are just getting progressively stronger at an incline the entire game, and there's no incentive to use anything other than the next best thing. And so future Mario games improve on that. They're different. You're right. They're different.
I don't think they do.
Well, when we do our Paper Mario game diary, we'll have to reopen this conversation.
Well, that's obviously number one. Thousand Year Door is obviously number one of the Mario RPGs.
Easy.
Like that, there's no question there.
That's
anyway.
the only other one I've played.
Mario and Luigi is on Switch Online. If you guys want to play another Mario RPG, still pretty breezy.
It's fun.
Definitely has some things that are better than Mario RPG. Definitely has some things that are worse.
Yeah, I absolutely love Mario and Luigi Superstar.
All right, well, let's do the okays then. Tiffany kind of kicked us off. Brandon, you got any okays? Anything that you didn't hate but you wish maybe was a little more fleshed out?
I mean, it's not like a more fleshed out thing, and this one's gonna kind of be weird. It's actually gonna be my okay and my obnoxious, and I'll explain the obnoxious when we get there. But like the quality, and then Tiffany brought it up earlier, and it's like the quality of life stuff where, like the changing out of party members when they lose when one faints in battle, or you can keep them. It's like you have that choice. Or like with items in the original game, you only got a certain number of items you could have. Where this one, you can have every item and then a certain number of each of that item, instead of it just being like, I have a bag that can only hold 30, so I better choose. And so it's like, I appreciated those things for bringing, because like you were saying, like bringing Mario RPG into the new age, those are new age mechanics. Those are things that people like and enjoy and feel welcoming to RPGs that the Mario RPG didn't have before. And so I appreciate those being there. While they're not exactly for me, I appreciate them being there for other people to enjoy and for them to see that and be all like, oh, I know how these kind of things work. This feels welcoming to me.
And a remake needs that kind of stuff. And we've talked about it a lot in our fantasy league. Like, remakes are such a gamble because really faithful remakes, like we saw this year with System Shock. And a lot of people complained that it felt old in its systems, and that was because it was so faithful to what the original game did in the fucking 90s or whatever, you know? But I think, yeah, to be appealing to a more mass audience, and even like to people who maybe played the game, like you have this vision in your mind of what the game plays like and feels like and looks like. It's not always like that, you know, when you actually go back to it. So
other okays, I will say for me, I go from good to obnoxious pretty fast.
Yeah, I would say something I could probably categorize as okay is that the game is really easy. And I think that's an intention. Like, that's obviously the intention, but it makes it so that a lot of times these battles are so rudimentary that you're just kind of going through the motions. Most of the time, it's faster and beneficial to just skip fights. Like, you don't even want to fight things. You're just trying to get to the next place where it's going to be more challenging, maybe, if you're lucky. And I would just put that as okay, because I don't think it's a benefit that it's easy. Like, it would be benefit if there was like a harder mode or like something that gave you more options to like fit it to your play style and your level of expertise with this genre of game. But overall, since it was so like keeping to the original, that was a bit of a downfall for it, in my opinion.
I wanna add on to Nick's okay. Like with the level cap. The level cap, it's nice that the level cap is so low. Like, you don't need to be at level 30 to beat the game. But the level cap is so low that by the time you get to the end of the game, you're only a few levels from the level cap, where most RPGs, you'll finish around level 50 to 70, but then some of them you can go anywhere from level 100 to level like 200 or 299, but you're finishing the game at 70. It's like, why is there so many more levels? Like, this is a nightmare to try and grind this out. Why do I want to? It's really nice that like your level cap is pretty close to where you're going to be. It's like, oh, you can push that extra edge if you want to. It's not that hard. Maybe take you like 30 minutes to an hour tops, if that. And then, or, you know, just finish the game at a little bit lower level. Like with EJ. EJ didn't even realize that, he went for Culex at level 20.
what can I say?
Yeah. Just overall, the economy is a little bit overly generous with the amount of coins and frog coins that you're getting. Like, what did you guys buy in this game besides the next set of gear? Like, you didn't have to buy items, you didn't have to buy anything. The only reason you'd go in the shops is to see if there was like a unique NPC that you could talk to, which is like, that's a good thing, is talking to characters and having enjoyable dialogue, but there was no real incentive to be like, oh, what do I have to do to get past this challenge, because there was never a challenge.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, but now I'm just like remembering I had this tiny little sinking sad feeling when I'd go to a new shop. I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, new shop. Go inside, buy, sell, and nothing on the list is something I wanted. I was
Mushrooms.
like, sucks.
Wait, did you actually need mushrooms?
No.
No.
That's the point.
Well, I mean, my man lost a Spiritovich out the gate, which is not something he disclosed in chat for obvious reasons.
I think I did.
I mean, I've seen quite a few people have lost the Spiritovich.
That was the OG like difficulty wall back in the day, so it makes sense that if you were kind of breezing through underleveled, then I say underleveled, but I mean, you had no reason to level up if you were not having a challenge until you did. And then suddenly you're like, oh, I actually have to fight some of these things and level up a few times and not get one shot by water blast.
Having some of my buttons get turned off, and then I'm like, oh, because I wasn't using Peach at that point. I was like, oh, okay, I need to keep a healer in the party, and then it's all gravy. But I was like, this game didn't message this to me through this point because it was so easy that I was like, wait, this man's really just gonna two-shot me? And I guess I'll start group hugging my way to the end game, and that's what I did. So
4 FP. That's just so busted, bro.
It is.
It's busted. So I am deeply split like just philosophically about using difficulty as an evaluator in a video game. I think generally speaking, and present company excluded, I'm just like voicing my own thought process here. I think it's a lazy critique most of the time. The people are like, oh, the difficulty, it's never that it's too hard. It's never that it's too hard. It's only really ever that it's too easy. Which like, take it on its merits, as we talked about this with Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which is still just like a criminally fucking underrated game, like one of the best in the Switch library and easily the best Kirby game they've ever made, but got saddled with some bafflingly low review scores because people thought it was too easy. Well, it's not trying to be Tears of the Kingdom, like it's not trying to be Mario Wonder. It's Kirby. That's what it is. That being said, I think that is a good place to put it is in the okay column, because in spite of difficulty, you can nonetheless balance it within its difficulty so that things like economy feels meaningful, so that there are customizable options within the gear system and not just go to town, get new thing that ups defense and magic defense +6. Like those all can exist and be well balanced within an experience that is intended to be Babby's first RPG. And they don't quite hit that balance here for sure.
Yeah, and to expound a little bit on what I'm saying when I'm saying it was a little bit too easy, is just that the best part of the game to me is the combat, and I didn't feel like continually experiencing the combat was rewarding enough to necessitate actually engaging with it. So I felt disincentivized to engage with its best quality. So when a game is trying to balance that, like it did a good job pacing wise as far as the time you spent in these areas, but the time spent was largely just going room to room, and the room to room was bad, but the combat was good, but I didn't need to do the combat, so I was just breezing past it a lot of times. And I beat this game level capped. Like I still got to level cap by the time I fought Smithy the first go round. So I was still engaging with combat, but it was like, I don't know, it was very much brain dead, press the buttons to get to the next battle. And that is a bummer because the combat system is so much fun. Like mechanically, it's just systemically, it was not, it didn't quite add up.
Why are we not, I hate to do the whataboutism thing, but why do we not speak about Paper Mario the same way? Because frankly, that combat is worse to me than Mario RPG's combat, and it is also way more trivial because of the fact that after a certain point, you literally don't even get experience from enemies and just have to run around them to avoid wasting fucking time going into a battle. But that never comes up in our discourse when we're talking about those games. And I'm excited to go back to Thousand Year Door because my memory of that from, oh my God, 20 years ago, like how long has it been since that came out? 15, 17? It's been a minute.
2003 or 4, I want to say.
Yeah, wow. Like 20 years. That's crazy. Is that did not suffer from the same problem. And I fucking hope it doesn't, because going through Paper Mario 2 years ago was a nightmare because of that very reason. But we never talk about that when we talk about Paper Mario. We just talk about like, oh, it's charming and oh, it's cute and oh, this and that and the other. And it's better than Mario RPG, even though a lot of the same things that we talk about don't hit for Mario RPG absolutely do not hit any better in Paper Mario. So I just like, I don't get why that gets treatment that SMARPG doesn't get when we bring these two games up in context with one another.
Yeah, I think it's very much just they are so similar, but they are also, like you mentioned, very different with the lack of a 3-member party or a 2-member party. And the enemies that you're facing up against as well are much like smaller groups of enemies. You can get up to like 6, I think, in Mario RPG. And in Paper Mario, I think the maximum is 4. So it changes the kind of time you're spending in battles and like who you're trying to attack, how you're trying to divvy up between area of effect attacks and just soloing these enemies. That I never really had that same sort of feeling that I was disincentivized from battling enemies because I wasn't really fighting enemies that were below me a lot of times in Paper Mario. So I never really got that experience of fighting a Goomba and getting 1-star piece or whatever and being like, okay, well, that was a waste of time because I just wasn't doing it. I was somewhere else. I didn't do a lot of backtracking because the game doesn't really require you to do that unless you're doing the really, really obscure side content. And something that I do really appreciate in all of the RPGs after Mario RPG is that the the level like design is much more engaging. It's much more interesting to run around the world in those games as opposed to Mario RPG, which was very trivial and rudimentary. And maybe it's just a sign of the time, like what they could achieve on that system. But there was nothing interesting in those areas besides the characters that you're talking to. So when I'm running around Barrel Volcano, it's just bad level layouts. I don't want to be there. But when I'm actually interacting with the world more so in a Mario RPG, like I think of another volcano that you go to in Paper Mario, and you have Bo, the Boo character, and you're being chased by a spike ball, and you realize that if you have Bo out, that you can actually turn invisible, and the spike ball will go through you and past you. Like, that is an interesting interaction that there's nothing like that in Mario RPG. So it's just that the sort of balance between the adventure and the battle systems is much more weighted towards the exploration in the Paper Mario series in particular, that it makes it easier for me to forgive maybe some of the shortcomings that I haven't even thought about in the battle system.
Man, for every volcano in Paper Mario, there's a fucking jungle that is just goddamn fucking ass to navigate and is poorly laid out and does not work. And also, like, what do you mean, like, the obscure side content? You're not delivering those letters on behalf of the postman? The postman Koopa, whose name I forget? Well, then you're not really playing Paper Mario.
I'm not doing Parakarry's bullshit for him, okay?
That's what you do.
That's not what I do, because apparently it is mind-numbing and not rewarding, according to one member of this podcast.
It is. It's terrible. It's awful.
So don't do it then.
Oh, don't engage with the game? Oh, fuck me, I guess, for wanting to do all the things the game has to offer.
Don't do the thing that sucks.
I kind of have to side with Nick here in a way, because so one of the turn-based RPGs that I love to play, Disgaea, like, they have so much extra stuff, and it can become so mind-numbing. Like, so the last one I played was 5. It's like I plan to get 7, but it's all like you can unlock emotions and go to the item world to power up your items, then power up your emotions to get different emotions. And then you have a council in which you vote on things. It's like you don't have to do any of that to beat the game and finish the game. Like, to max everything, yeah, but it's all like, it's not fun to try and do any of those things, at least to me. And so I just don't do them. I don't partake. I let the game give me whichever emotions and whatever item levels they want. And then I just level up my characters to be big buff boys and then go beat everything instead of like min-maxing everything. Cause it's so boring to me personally. They have it because people love it. I'm just not that person.
Right. And we've talked about the sick urge that we as gamers can sometimes lend ourselves to, where we will do the thing, not because we like it, but because we get a funny star just for doing it. So the medals, like in Mario Wonder, that EJ was beating himself up over to get the standee, that I also did, but in a little bit less time, because I don't know, I'm just better at games sometimes. But I get it. Like, you want to do the Parakarry side quest because Parakarry's the homie. He's a good member of your team. He's a good boy, and he deserves to be helped in his quest to retrieve these lost letters.
Well, there's not a lot
to
do in Paper Mario that isn't the main game. If you're not doing Parakarry's quest, if you're not helping out.
Yeah, it's about 15 hours, just like another game that we're talking about that's really good. There's not a lot of extra stuff to do.
All right.
And yet we don't mention that when we talk about that fucking game. It drives me crazy. This is my EJ. This is my fucking Metroid Prime remastered. So you're going to tell me the Metroid Prime is the same game and that's a 94 in 2023? That is me with Paper Mario and Super Mario RPG. I'm already dead and buried on this hill.
I'll be glad to get to the things that are truly awful about this game. We'll get there, because there are things that prevent this from being any better than any other Mario RPG I've played. But something I want to bring up that is on my okay list that I think you guys are going to have some opinions about is the art style. And I know that they went with something that was very faithful, I think, to the spirit of this game on the Super Nintendo. But there was something a little just generic. Like, it didn't have the character that the original game had, especially the way the original game utilized the tech on the Super Nintendo to give us something similar to a Donkey Kong or a Star Fox. Like, really trying to push the tech to make something that looked, I mean, because this game came out, what, a year after the N64?
Same year as the N64.
Same year. So a really, really late release. The art style in the remake, like, they were trying to be so faithful in doing exactly what the original game did. that it loses some of that character and it loses some of that shine. And you compare it to something like Link's Awakening, which was a complete reimagining. Obviously, that was a 2D Game Boy game, right? So like the leap had to be a lot bigger, I think, than this was stylistically. But I said, okay, yeah, this seems like this is what Super Mario RPG would look like in 2023. Was that the best choice? I don't know. So it's just on the okay. I always kind of thought this game kind of looked a little like mobile gamey, and I didn't love it when the previews or the trailers were out. And playing through it, I still kind of felt that way, but I was like, yeah, okay. Tiffany, what did you think about how this game looked? Did it look the way it should have looked in your mind after all these years?
I was just trying to look up pictures of the old version. I mean, I don't really know what the criticism is here. It's a little unclear because it's like, is it just that they were all kind of chibi style that you didn't like? Is that what you're talking about?
I don't know how to else articulate other than like it felt a little mobile gamey. And part of this might be in part due to some of the character designs where you have faithful designs from the 90s, but then you have Bowser just being like exactly like he's been for the last 20 years. Or you've got like creepy little toddler Mario, but then Peach is just regular. And so maybe there's sort of a dichotomy between ups. Like there's...
I'm glad you knew exactly what I was talking about. Whenever you get a star, it just uppies.
Mario, I think the old style is kind of creepy looking. When I'm like,
Hell yeah.
I'm having a hard time looking at it, looking like, is that real? Bowser's terrifying. He's still,
Oh my God.
he's not good looking in the old game. So I kind of like that they made it cute, but I don't know if I care about it like enough to criticize it. What are we? We're on okay. Yeah, I guess it fits in okay. I think it's cute though. So I hate to be stereotype, lady who's like, oh, it was cute, and some of you, one of you said like, it's great. This was the first game where Peach actually fought back or something like that. And I'm like, in my current feminist whatever brain, it's like, yeah, but she uses a frying pan and a parasol and she like heals people. She's like the anime trope third person who just learns how to heal.
She throws bombs.
but-
Come on.
Yeah, she's a fucking terrorist.
But I do think it's cute, and I will just go ahead and be, stereotype and be like, I do think it's really cute, so I don't hate the art style.
No, I certainly don't hate it. It just feels safe and bland and like there was another tier that this art could have gone to in reimagining what this game wanted to do with its limitations that they don't have anymore. Like we don't have those limitations anymore. And again, the Zelda comp isn't like totally great, but what they created with Link's Awakening was just so unique and so beautiful in a way that this just felt like perfectly cromulent. It was just fine.
Yeah, it was safe. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I guess that does make sense. Yeah.
And I would agree largely. And I think a lot of it just sort of comes down to the main cast and like how they are rendered out. And it's tough because Mallow and Gino haven't been in other games, so we don't have a history of what these characters look like. So when I look at those characters, they look perfect. They look exactly how they should look. And then Peach is a little weird. Mario's actually, I would say, fine. Like, because like Tiffany said, the original Gremlin Mario, you probably couldn't do a full game with that. That would be distracting. I would love it. I'm a sicko for that. I love that design. I love the original Bowser design, and I don't like how they turned him into state-sponsored Bowser. That is the safe render. But it saved a little bit because the expressions that these characters have in-game all fit really well. So like during the pantomime scenes, during whenever Bowser has his big tears that are going up and down in his eyes, it looks perfect. It looks like that's how Bowser should look in this game. But it's just everywhere else where he's just like Bowser. It's just kind of boring. So I'm of two minds. I think it is kind of uneven. So I would agree that it's okay.
Before we continue, I gotta know now. The wedding scene. Who we getting all smooches from?
I got smooched by Peach.
Nice. Peach.
The first one, I got Bowser, and then I was like, what did I do wrong?
Not fast enough.
I ran it again. Yeah, I ran it again and got the good.
It's
scene.
messed up that the best reward is for doing the worst time. Getting that double smooch from Bowser and Booster.
I got Bowser and Booster.
Canon.
That's what I got too.
See, that's the real reward right there.
While we're talking about the wedding, can I just say that it's weird that when you thought peek Tort and his apprentice, that it's just two Torts. I thought that's weird.
That was true in the original game, and this feels like one of those things that and this squarely belongs in my okay column, is that they kept a couple of things that were definitely not features. They were definitely bugs. But in the spirit of, we're going to really bring this game back, they just brought it back. Like, case in point, like Valentina's
XOR.
model. XOR, I'm gonna talk about that. But Valentina's model is so drastically different on the world map and in combat, where I'm like, I get that on the Super Nintendo a little bit, but like, you could have like unified the designs here, although they did remove her boob physics.
Nerfed.
Which is
hard.
good.
Nerfed boob physics.
Because those milkers were a bouncing in the Super Nintendo.
She finally calmed her tits.
Nice. And yeah, the XOR glitch that if you take out one of the eyes and then you hit him with Geno Whirl, you can just fucking one-shot him, because when the one eye was down, there was a bug that his magic defense dropped to 0, and so you could, and they kept it in. And I'm like, yay! Like, I don't know how I feel about that. It's just like, yeah, that's where it treads into, did you have to keep that? Like, how faithful does that really have to be?
Think about like a young kid playing this who, I mean, I'm sure most of them use the internet, so they probably figured it out by the internet. But let's say one doesn't have the internet for whatever reason, can play a Switch but doesn't have the internet, and you just come across that. How cool do you feel that you haven't been able to one-shot a single bad guy, and then by doing this cool little thing, all of a sudden, boom, 99999, you see that on your screen against the boss, and you're like, oh, I unlocked a thing! Oh my god! Like, think out that energy a kid. I mean, I know us as adults probably, but you know, it's a Mario game, so technically it's for kids.
It's a harmless glitch that they didn't have to keep in it, but they chose to. So that's like almost a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, it just speaks to like they are faithful to the point, and then sometimes beyond the point where it's useful to be completely faithful. Where like I want Lumpy Bowser, god damn it. I don't want this
I love
Bowser.
Lumpy Bowser.
And I like the little personality touches, like on his level up screen, he like cross his arms and give that little nod of like, yeah, you know I'm the fucking shit. And also the level up screen, that should have been in my good column. I can't believe everybody's step touching. Mallow's arms are just like waving to the side because he's got no fucking rhythm. He can't stay up on his own 2 feet, and Bowser's just too cool for school.
Are they even his feet? He's clearly a cloud. He floats up of his pants like 50% of the time.
No, you can see a body going down into those pants.
Whose is it?
Mallow is 2 toddlers in a trench coat.
My wife threw shade at Gino for that because I was showing her how cool it was. So she's like, "Oh yeah, that's really cute. That's really cool." And then she saw Gino, and he's just kind of like, and she's like, "Wow, he's like putting in no effort for everybody's success. What an asshole."
He's made of wood. Of course, it's a wooden dance. He's got his shoulders going.
He serves a higher authority than the dance.
I'll kick off the obnoxious as a show of that I am perfectly capable of recognizing the things in this game that don't work. The mini games are so fucking obnoxious, and I don't put them into bad because a couple of them are genuinely better than they were on the Super Nintendo, like Midas River especially. Could never, ever have the timing of the barrels and the jumps down. It was not as responsive as I wanted it to be on the Super Nintendo. It's very responsive now, and I loved that. But fucking Goomba stomping, the minecart, holy shit, the minecart is terrible. The beetle race is like fine, but even then, like the timing on that's kind of fucky, and I don't know like on what part of the barrel it's gonna count as a hit that's gonna propel me forward, and what part of the barrel towards the backside is gonna send me backwards. Like the mini games are incredibly obnoxious. The only one that I didn't mind in this game, especially because they gave you the A-B rhythm, which I didn't have a problem with on Super Nintendo either, is the Yoshi racing, which to me was really, really easy. But I know that y'all had like variable experiences with the Yoshi racing, but that is clearly and squarely in the obnoxious column for me. And they make you do a lot of these mini games.
Yeah, I struggled hard with the Yoshi one on this Super Nintendo. Clear it every time.
It shows you the rhythm on this one. It just tells you when to do it.
When you listen to it, though, it doesn't quite no.
It doesn't line up auditorily.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
And so I'm not trying to I'm trying to do it how I do on the Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo didn't have the showing you which ones to press. So I'm trying to go with the rhythm of the music and whatnot, which I know you don't believe I can most of the time, but amazingly I can sometimes. like Spider-Man 2. It's all like when you did the rhythm game in that one, like when I just tried to press the buttons, I'd always miss. But then when I realized that the buttons hit to the beat of the music and I started just hitting to the beat of the music, then I started doing it. So it's all like, and because the music's just slightly off, it just every single time.
I always joke that Brandon's on a 7-second tape delay, but he's just further confirming that is in fact true. When I see it, my brain doesn't line up with it, but when I hear it, it's flawless. That is exactly it, my friend. I'm trying to think of all the other mini games. The river was super annoying. Not the barrels, but the first part of the river. We were like jumping to try and move. I was like, why? Can I just please skip this? Why is it forcing me into this? This is fucking terrible.
Get the little scenes with the little critters running around, and then they'll give you a little drop. They'll like carry the flower around and try and take it from each other. Then it falls on you. You're like, I got that flower. I got a new flower now. That's great. It's
It was very Splash Mountain.
The memory card game in the casino, Nick, that one was fun, right?
I did that one time.
Wow.
Same.
I was like, okay.
I did it like 5. I was like,
Where's
"Oh,
my
this is fun."
blackjack? We're being faithful, but I can't fucking play blackjack in the casino anymore.
The closest you get to blackjack is in Bowser's Keep when you have to if you choose to do the Hammer Brothers trivia, and one of the challenges is hitting the block and having them hit it on 21, but you can hit it up to 4 times. Which, if we want to talk about other obnoxious things, I would say that that 6-door challenge in Bowser's Keep is obnoxious as hell.
Yes.
It
Oh my
was
god.
Especially if you're trying to get what used to be the ultimate weapons for Mallow and Geno and Bowser, you have to get certain ones, which meant you would just have to fail. So the quiz ones you can't even do because they don't yield weapons. So you'd have to just smash your head against the box until you lost, go back out, and then hope the next one was going to be one of the correct chambers. Yeah. Who else has got some obnoxious?
I hated looking for those invisible boxes. I think it's stupid and it's a waste of time. I eventually got rid of that stupid ring and just haven't looked for those boxes anymore.
Well, there's nothing that important in there. It's
Nothing
not like
that important. Exactly. That's what it was. Is like if there was something really cool, if I was 100%er, which I'm really not. I've done that like on 2 games ever, like Mario 64, which you all know is my favorite game of all time, and then Banjo-Kazooie. So yeah, no, pass.
I ended up getting all of them because I'm a sicko, but that's mostly because I don't have a good way to spend my time.
Chris.
Me neither, buddy. I got them all. Although I was really, well, I wouldn't say I was pissed off, but getting up to Nimbus Land and getting an improved version of it from Croco, which definitely
After
was not
only
the
having
original.
like 2 left.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Why
Like,
couldn't this have been earlier? Come
why
on.
couldn't the fucking frog apprentice in Seaside Town have sold this bitch for 40 frog coins? Like, that would have actually been useful.
Yeah, I got down to like 4, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. I don't care that much because I know there's nothing good in them.
some quick hits on obnoxious. I've already mentioned requiring Mallow to always be in the party to complete the compendium. I know there's a guy who will like sell you shit later, but
For 3 frog coins a piece.
which is ridiculous.
Why not just 1? There's so many enemies.
There's so many. I ran Mallow pretty much after the first boss. I always had Mallow in my party to Thought Peak, and I still was missing like more than 50.
Yeah, because there's missable ones. Unless you just like slow roll Beloam and let them take like clones of all of your party members, you're not going to get those first try unless you like just choose to do that. Just waste your own time. A bit of a bummer.
The performance in this game is like not spectacular unless you're like in battle or in a bedroom. Otherwise, it's like it's not very performative, and that is what it is. It's like a stutter, like whatever. It didn't crash or anything, so whatever. Something that I found obnoxious, not bad, but again, this is a faithful remake. There were moments where they would do the cutscenes, and there was like no sound effects. And I was like, these cutscenes are obviously new. Why couldn't you make them feel like they belong in 2023? Why are you still sticking with the sort of same audiovisual conceit? It would just be like music and the occasional like boing or whatever. Like there was no footsteps. Obviously there's no like voices or whatever.
No voices, but sometimes you hear a Bowser growl, and it's like,
Yeah,
why does he deserve it then and not any other time? Like, It was weird, very, very stilted for sure.
Definitely makes the game like feel old. And those are the moments where it would pull me out and I was like, oh yeah, I am playing a 30-year-old game. Anybody else? I'm ready to dig into some of the bad stuff, the stuff that really kept this from being an overwhelmingly pleasant experience for me.
I'm sure you are, buddy. I'm sure you are. Any other obnoxious? The mini games for me is the one thing that I just was like, God, I don't love this.
I got my obnoxious that was partnered up with my good. So the obnoxious part about my good, at least for me, is like while I'm happy it brings other people in, this game, like playing the remake, made me realize something about old RPGs that I didn't realize that people loved until this one was like item management and whatnot. Like having that, because like Nick was saying, it's really easy, especially when like you can have every type of item, where before like you had to figure out, oh, I need to have maybe 4 pick-me-ups and like 5 mushrooms and then like 3 maple syrups, because that's all I can hold. And so it's like the item management, or like for this boss, which characters are going to be like, I don't think, other than when I first started playing this, I never really ever got a game over, but it's still like one of those things that like I realize in RPGs that I've done a lot, and I like older ones, and that I didn't realize I enjoyed, of like, oh, I need to make sure I have these, and through this dungeon I can only use so much of this magic because I'll need this much more to face the boss, where this kind of just like wipes all of that stuff clean, and it's all like here, or it's like knowing that holding on the flower tabs and use it instantly heals all your flower points. So it's like you hold on to like 3 of those, and so when you get right before the boss, you heal all your flower points. It's like you didn't need to do that, because you can have the honey syrup, the maple syrup, the royal syrup. And so it's all like, while I like those things being there for new players, I kind of miss, the other way. Like, I wish there was an option, like there's an option for changing to the old style music. I wish there was like a way to change to the old style, like item management. So at least, even though it's an easy game, it's a little bit more difficult, quote unquote.
Right. And engaging with those systems more and having to make choices, which is the interesting part that games let you do. I agree with that. They even have a breezy mode that is even more forgiving, where you don't have a maximum limit on like mushrooms and stuff. They don't get sent to a weird arbitrary item storage back at Mario's pad. You just can hold infinite mushrooms and infinite syrups and stuff, and you get more experience and enemies deal less damage. So it's like it's a general easier mode, but they already have like shown that they're willing to let you modify their menu system or their inventory system to be more accommodating. Why can't they bring it back to the OG way? Because yeah, that is something that is archaic, but also it was balanced for that. Like that's the way the game was built intentionally from the get-go. So everything about this game is easier. So it's just one of the things.
When we talk about like holding difficulty or lack thereof against a game, it's not just like too easy bad or too hard bad. It's when we talk about a game being too easy, if I'm not engaged because I'm not being challenged, and everyone has a different threshold for that, right? So there's no like quick, formula for determining, oh, this game's too easy or this game's not easy enough or whatever. But managing your inventory and having to be more strategic in your fights increases the difficulty of the game, and it keeps you more engaged. It keeps you more like present in all of those systems. And when that's all gone, it's just spamming A until you get to the end. And some people I'm some people like the humor, the goofy, like, I don't know, shit, that stuff doesn't hit for me. I'm just like, this feels old, and I just don't really get off to the, oh, it's quirky and fun and the story's cute. I'm like, that is totally ancillary to this experience. I am completely tuned out of any of this. And I still read through the dialogue and stuff, but that does not enhance the experience. It only serves to detract from the experience at times. So yeah, when you make those systems too easy, there are times where you say like, what's the point of doing this? I'm not engaged with this. So I like easy. I played Spider-Man on easy. You know what I mean? Like there are things that I don't need it to be hard for hard's sake. So yeah, I understand that frustration, Brandon.
Does anyone not named EJ Olsen have something in the bad column?
I mean, the closest to bad would be the thing I talked about towards the beginning with the animations just being a little bit too smooth and not like choppy and fast. But that's like obnoxious, borderline bad. That's about as close as it gets for me.
Yeah, and for me, what I was talking about with the dungeon layout being very lackluster and just the area layouts in general being lackluster is more obnoxious than bad per se.
I think mini games for me are probably closer to bad than obnoxious. It's somewhere in the oob or the ob. It's somewhere.
Let's
it's
go
somewhere
more
in
ob.
there. Yeah. Tiff, you got anything in the bad?
No, I don't think there was anything bad like that I can think of. The closest was those just looking for those stupid treasure chests that drove me nuts. And the mini games are pretty close to bad because I really like mini games. Like I love those when we play them on the Kirby games, and so I know that Nintendo can do better with their mini games, and they just didn't. So yeah, that's close to bad, but that might be bad. Might be bad in my head. So that's the closest I get.
I'm gonna go take a 20-minute shit while EJ man yells at Cloud about an RPG.
Oh, he likes Mallow.
That he probably didn't have the right hat on for, but no, EJ, let's hear it. Let's have it.
Okay, let's just get the easy things off the list. I already mentioned how like the equipable items essentially don't matter in this game. Just everything gets better linearly, and you want to talk about like de-incentivizing me from engaging with the game systems. That is like close to the top. If I don't have any agency over my character or agency that truly matters, that lack of customization really bothers me. The load screens were so brutal in this game. I don't know if y'all ran into that like I did. I felt like every time I left a fucking room, it was like 7 seconds. Like I'm just staring at a black screen.
You're so full of shit, dude. In 7 seconds, my lily white ass, maybe 3, but that's fucking wild. No way.
And then like go open the journal and it takes like 4 seconds to load each new entry.
The journal takes a long time.
Oh my God.
The journal takes forever.
Fucking nightmare. My two major fucking gripes for this game that really turned me off. One of them is maybe more in the obnoxious than bad, but I thought narratively the lack of a consistent bad guy, it felt like every half an hour I was getting tossed into some new baddie, and then the final run-up of the game is just like 9 different bosses, and you're like, who the fuck are these people? What am I actually doing? Where am I? I don't understand why these have no connecting like narrative threads whatsoever. This is just like,
What, you didn't like the fighting the weird snake in the hourglass? Come on.
it's just like, dude,
You
it's
like
just
Birdo?
Birdo was cool. And Birdo's like, let's fucking fight, but also like, good luck. Like I was like, that was cool. But no, I just that whole last few hours, I was just like, dude, what is going on? And so I think that was like probably, and this is more of a criticism of like obviously the original game, but like just not having the overarching bad guy that you actually interact with. And there's like some charm. Like Johnny was cool. I really liked that. Johnny! He was just like so impressed.
Let me
like,
solo him.
Johnny's the best.
Yeah, like Johnny was cool, but most of the other bad guys in this game, just the most forgettable, generic fucking what is this character designs in the world. So that last few hours, I was like, I think this is bad. That we're just on a fucking like grand tour of all of these enemies that I've never seen before. I don't understand why this is game. I know it's super short, so they're having to like pad it out, but I was like beating my head against that. The biggest thing that completely ruined this experience for me, not that it was fully ruined, but it's something that the game wants you to do all the time, and that is platforming. The platforming in this game fucking sucks. It is wretched. It is abhorrent. Just the idea that we're doing this top-down isometric thing, and now they want me to make precision platforming these moments, and some of them are mini games, but some of them are mandatory. It's imprecise as hell. Fucking Chris, give me that look. It's imprecise as hell. You get too close to a ledge and you don't know where that fucking hitbox is, and if you get too close, you can't actually hit A, so you just fall to your fucking death. I knew it was terrible back then because that's the one thing I always saw complain about is how awful the platforming was. Experiencing it my fucking self, every hour of this game, there was a moment where I was like, this is so bad. Mario's a platformer. You have to platform in Mario. If that was the only difference between this and Paper Mario, that is enough to make Paper Mario 20 points higher, okay? On our fucking soon-to-be console crusade. Review scale, I thought it was terrible. And that was the one thing I did forgive a lot of this game in its obnoxious things. The platforming consistently made it just feel terrible. And you know, the typical things like we complained about with like the Pokemon remakes, for example, of like, you don't know where your character's hitbox is. And so you're trying to navigate the world and you're bumping into things you shouldn't bump into. And you don't know, am I far enough away from this enemy that I can squeeze by? And sometimes you're like, how did that guy touch me? And sometimes like downstairs in the ship where you could just sneak past all the fucking Grim Reapers into those, the 6 doors to find the clues. I'm like, okay, so here I can sneak by them with a sliver of room, but like there are other times I'm out in the world and I'm like 10 feet from somebody and I get touched. How? It doesn't make any fucking sense. It ruined the experience for me by and large. And at that, you get to the end and I kept picking a fucking platform room and I'm like, and I'm already so fed up with it at this point, and now they're forcing me into this fucking experience where I have to platform my way to the end. It's fucking terrible. It's awful. Moving in this world is bad. And for a game that wants you to explore and find things, it's like, there's nothing to find. I don't give a shit about the fucking dialogue in this game. And moving in it feels so consistently awful that I'm like, the only part about this game I liked was the fucking battles. And even after a point, like some of Nick's criticisms, you get to those battles and you're like, okay, I don't need to keep doing this. So I just wanted to get to the end of the fucking game. Anyway.
Who wants to say it?
Don't fucking say skill issue, motherfucker. It's bad.
I would agree it's not good.
It was bad 30 years ago, and it's way worse now.
I don't know, man. It's an isometric 8-way movement, and you are locked into that at a set speed. There's no sprint. There is no variable movement. You don't slide. Your momentum doesn't carry. I don't know what to tell you.
There were no ice worlds. How can you be so angry?
There's no ice worlds.
After doing my job for as long as I do, where we deal with isometric drawings, this platforming has actually become much easier because I see isometric all the time. So it like just clicks with my brain now. So
It is also better with a
Skill
analog stick
issue.
compared to a D-pad.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Were you playing? Are you a D-pad dude, EJ, like through and through?
No, come on. Playing a 3D game with a D-pad. Come on, give me some credit here.
I know you want your D-pad when you're playing. It was a legitimate question because I know you're always looking for a controller with a D-pad. So I didn't know if you're like, this is kind of retro. I'll do the D-pad thing.
No. This game, and I imagine playing this with a D-pad would have felt awful.
Oh, it's way worse. Way worse.
Goomba Smash D-pad. That was much easier to do the Goomba Smash with the D-pad.
Dude, how many fucking times I was trying to line up with an enemy and jump on top of them, and I'm just like jumping over them. And of course, I shouldn't be trying to jump on them because I don't do any extra damage by engaging them that way in the first place. But I'm like, I just keep jumping over this person. He's right there. He's right under me. Why can't I fucking touch him? He's just running away from me. And I can't, the angle of this whole thing doesn't make any fucking sense. It's so stupid. I hate it. Chris's fucking, the smug fucking smile.
So is that Brandon? You want to say it or?
It's already been said.
I already said it.
You said it to yourself. Oh, did you? Okay, I was like, EJ
No,
said
I
it
said
to
skill
himself.
issue because I was saying that y'all have skill issues because of my dealing with isometric drawings. Everybody who complains about it, they just don't deal with enough isometric drawings.
Oh, like you didn't fall to your fucking doom on those stupid rotating platforms.
You get 10 tries. You get 10 tries.
That doesn't make it good. I obviously did it. It's not like I spent 6 hours trying to platform to the end of the fucking 2 of the 6 rooms. It's just bad. And when I run into it, I'm like, I want to turn this game off right now and never play it again.
I didn't have to redo any of the rooms if it makes you feel any worse. I mean,
well, you probably went straight for the fucking trivia and spammed A on all the goddamn answers that you already knew.
No, I lost the trivias on purpose because, like Chris said earlier, you don't get the weapons, the hidden weapons.
Nope, I did. Only combat and platforming challenges. If you go through the 2 platforming rooms and the 2 combat challenge rooms, you get, well, other than the frying pan, which is a secret ultimate weapon, you get everybody but Mario's best weapon from chests at the end of those. If you do the trivias, you do not get a good one because obviously they're way fucking easier. The trivia and the coin game, they're way fucking easier than the other ones.
The best weapons you get, like, randomly. The best weapons are like the staff and the laser beam. You get
get those in the post game, but prior to the Smithy defeat, those are new. Prior to the Smithy defeat, the star gun, the It's
slap.
the
It's the
super
drill
slap.
the drill claws, the cymbals, and the slap glove.
Yeah, those all drop from 4 specific challenges in Bowser's Castle. And then in the post game, when you do the rematches with the different bosses, you get new ultimate weapons for everybody but Mario and Peach. Because Peach the Frying Pan in Mole Town is her best. Yeah.
Also, I haven't looked it up, but I wonder if there's a any sort of hidden secrets associated with the crystal shard that you get from Culex 3D.
Not that I've seen so far. I did not know until like yesterday years old, that the quartz charm actually fucking did anything.
Oh, and it's brutal. It's so good.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I was like, motherfucker, that's this whole time. Although it's no use against
Always.
it's no use against the Culex rematch anyway, because you have to have true form pins on, or else you're gonna get fucking pedal blasted every single turn and not be able to do any goddamn damage.
So what? I'm trying to think. So I got 2 of those weapons in those 6 rooms. I got 2 weapons out of those, and then I got 2 like candies out of the other ones.
Yeah.
So which rooms did you do? So the 2 combats are Geno and Bowser, and then you have the one
I did the 2 combats. I did a platform, and I did a trivia.
Did you do a platform where you had like a vanishing floor?
No.
Then you did Peaches, because the vanishing floor has Mallows. I guess I could ask, did you get a weapon that Peach slaps, or did you get a weapon where Mallow uses cymbals?
I did not get Mallow's symbols. I haven't used
so
symbols since like the beginning of the game.
Okay, so I was right. Yeah, you got the Peach slap. And then, the 2 combats are Geno's and Bowser's.
Yeah, talk about a lazy gauntlet of just fighting a bunch of things.
And they progressively get easier, and then they get hard. It's all like, what?
Yeah, it's not
Ridiculous.
It's not good. That's an obnoxious for me. Is that if you're gonna give me a combat challenge, like have Magic Koopa summon in like fucking Bowyer or something. Like give me
Make it a challenge.
Come at me. Do your worst. This is the end game.
Yeah.
I mean, they even shoot you out a dragon, and it's still like, but is it as tough as like a lava dragon skeleton thing?
Which
No.
totally forgot that boss had a second phase until it happened in the moment. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. I love that. Anyway, give us your 1-sentence review and an associated score, 1 to 2 sentences, and an associated score on a 1 to 100 point scale. I have to tinker with my phrasing a little bit. Why don't you kick us off, EJ?
I wonder if his score is going to start with a 6 or a 7.
That's the question. A faithful remake of a game that likely introduced many to the genre, sometimes cute, often irritating, but perfectly bite-sized. It informs all of the mostly superior Mario RPGs that followed, and as such is worthy of revisiting. Just don't expect a particularly modern experience. 77.
Wow. Much higher score than I would have anticipated based on your tirade against the platforming at the end there.
Here. I was figuring his was in the 60s
Backloaded
somewhere.
that.
It's an okay game. 77's a C+ even. I mean, come on. Maybe not quite. It's a firm C. That's my 2-sentence review.
It's a firm C. Put it on the box.
Who else has a 1 or 2 sentence review? Give it to me.
I'm working on mine.
A revitalization of an RPG for first-time comers with an 83.
An 83. And this is from a Mario RPG lover. I feel a little more vindicated here. All right, Nick.
I mean, like, I love this game. It's just not that amazing.
You started by assuming that just because we loved it meant we couldn't be objective.
Chris thought this was going to score a 95. A 95.
Chris also does that.
Talk about hyperbole.
I thought it had 90 potential.
I thought I was going to come on this fucking podcast and go on a tirade, and I am angry about how overrated Metroid was in the remake sphere this year. I'm still salty about that, but I'm like, no, in no world does this game deserve to even scrape the 9s.
Look, pal, it's closer to a 90 than a 77, so take that away from what you will. Nick?
I don't know if I really have like a summation review. I liked it. It was breezy. It was nice. It reminded me of playing it when I was a kid. And I'd say it's a solid 80.
Tiff, you still rating?
Yeah.
Chris, do you have your prepared statement?
More or less. A worthwhile return to a lost gem on the Super Nintendo that rightfully gets its day in the sun. A loving and faithful remake for better often and sometimes for worse. 86.
Just to give you an extra minute if you want, Tiffany, I just been thinking about this. It's weird when games are remade / remastered and they don't have that declaration in its title, so then you're left searching for God of War 2018 versus God of War 2003 or whatever the original one came out, or Super Mario RPG versus Super Mario RPG versus Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, or Resident Evil 4 that came out this year that doesn't have a subtitle. It's just Resident Evil 4, so now there's a 2005 version and a 2023 version. That's just annoying. That's all.
Fully agreed.
Okay, a jolly trot down memory lane through the annals of Mario lore, where only the oddballs have been. Everyone's invited, but like an unpopular kid's birthday party, only a few more may join. Because it's endearing, albeit dated. 85.
Well said.
Are you impressed with the scores, EJ? How do you feel about how people rate it? What were you expecting us to say?
I think Chris wanted to go next to last because he tempered his score. I don't think he came into this pod with an 86.
No. That's right where I've been the whole time, man. I just was kicking it around to everybody, trying to do the host thing and not like go full info dump hyperfixation from a place of nostalgia and just hijack this podcast. Because that was a very real reality where I just faucet the entire time, and I did try not to do that.
Altogether, we gave this a lower score than the Metacritic, but pretty close, like an 83.
What did the OpenCritic give it? 84?
84, I think, yeah.
And that's
Well, look at us.
perfectly acceptable. Perfectly acceptable.
Worth the time, worth the money.
Some of the knocks that I read in a lot of the reviews, I was kind of like, you're not wearing the right hat. And EJ, I will say to your credit, that is not something that came up at all in the review. Where I had a notion that maybe you'd be like, well, who is this for, and why even revisit this, and just coming from a frame of not what the game is trying to do. And you didn't do that at all. But a lot of the reviews that I've read, they've been like, this is baby's first RPG. If you go into this expecting something else, you are setting yourself up for failure. You know me, I'm team like evaluate what the game is trying to do, not what you wish the game was doing. So super pleased with all five of us for just doing that.
EJ was not the worst version that Chris imagined in his mind as a pre-defense mechanism.
Yeah,
I have to protect myself.
Last week, I was like, you're going to lose your fucking mind when I scored Mario RPG because, again, I'm still operating under the assumption that Chris is like, this is a 95. This is the third best game of the year or whatever.
He just loves it.
I loved it. I cried. Listen, I literally cried like 10 times playing this game.
Good.
Like 10 fucking
I'm
times.
glad.
Including on my like rewatch of the credits after beating Smithy the second time. Because I was just like, I can't believe almost every single one of my personal top 10 games I can play on the Nintendo Switch. I can play Mega Man X in 2 different forms. I can play the entire Metroid franchise, including Metroid Prime specifically, except for Zero Mission, but that's going to come to NSO eventually. I can play Metroid Prime. I can play Knights of the Old Republic 1. I can play Knights of the Old Republic 2. I can play Super Mario RPG. I can play Final Fantasy 6. This machine is a miracle machine, and it's why I think Nintendo's smart to not abandon it, because you can still, like, the catalog is just so astonishingly broad and deep. And they keep bringing more and more stuff that I'm like, I literally never, ever thought that this would happen. I was so stunned during the Nintendo Direct. I didn't even have my emotional response for like another hour because I was just like, this isn't real. Like, this literally can't be real. And that's how it felt the whole time. Like, Tiff's, a warm hug is a great way to put it. Maybe one that lingers a little too long and you're like, all right, Uncle Jeff, I need you to let me go now. I understand.
Yikes.
Not quite a group hug.
Console Crusade Podcast.